Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. I read a quote yesterday which said, "If everything seems under control, you're just not going fast enough." And that pretty much just sums up how things are at the moment. That quote apparently is from Mario Andretti, who was an American race car driver and won the 1978 Formula One. And I'm totally relating to it right now. So it is Tuesday evening. It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm up on the plot and everything is wonderfully calm and serene. The hens are really chilled. The ducks are really calm. And it is just wonderful to be up here and just have a moment to record this podcast and have a catch up with you about what's been going on, because I have been not doing so much on the plot, and I've started every episode with, well, I haven't really been on the plot that much. And I thought, oh my goodness, I cannot get to Tuesday and say those words again. So welcome to tonight's episode, and let me update you on what's been going on. So we still haven't had any rain, and I'm trying to stay really calm and not panic. It looks like we have drought conditions here in the UK. We haven't had any rain since, I don't know, about April, beginning of April, something like that. And we don't even have anything forecast for the next fortnight, which would mean pretty much the whole of May. Well, the whole of May has been dry. Most of April was dry. And I'm just starting to have a little tiny bit of a wobble now, because there is not much water in the bowsers after that disaster I had a month or so ago where I left the tap running overnight. I mean, you just honestly, when I look back at it now, I'll be lucky if I get through this summer. That was just the most catastrophic mistake with hindsight. My other half very kindly bought me some water up for one of the water bowsers this morning in a wheelie bin in the back of his van, just so that we can keep waters going for the chickens and the ducks. But everything else, unfortunately, just has to fall down the priority list. The animals will always come first. And so the new seedlings are having one watering can per variety per day. And that is absolutely all they can have. So far, everybody's doing fine. I have put some bark mulch around the Verbena bonariensis. I think on one of my previous episodes, I'd said to you that they were struggling and they really weren't doing very well. They didn't seem very happy, and they had all these weeds around them, really, really small ones, like nothing that was even remotely the same height as them. But I think in these incredibly dry conditions, any competition for resources is going to be detrimental. So I made the decision to chop and drop the weeds, and then I watered them, and then I put this bark mulch down on the top, and hopefully that will give them a bit of a boost. I have been planting out my scabious and some didiscus, so kind of like the first batches of those. So I'm all about the successional sowing this year. So there's sort of everything was sowed every fortnight. So first batches ready to come up. But of course the dilemma is that I have, mains water at home, so I can water everything as much as they like all day long without worrying. But of course, if they're at home, they're going to be in trays. So most of them, or half of them, have come out of the greenhouse. There's still really little things in the greenhouse. So if they're at home, I can water them without any worries whatsoever. But the minute they come up to the plot, I have to rely on what little water I've got left in the bowsers. And because I don't want anyone struggling, I've made the executive decision to leave most of them at home and not plant them out in a heat wave. But of course, it's probably going to set them back a little bit, because they're just filling up the trays and they're growing and competing with their neighbours, and all their roots are getting twined together. But I still think that's a better option than putting them out in the field and then they can't get as much water as they need, because that will also stunt their growth. So it's a kind of 6 and 2 3s thing, really. But the guys that have made it up here that have been planted out seem to be doing absolutely fine. The cornflowers, I mean, just absolutely bomb-proof. They hardly get any water. And I don't think they've had anything in the last week. And they're growing away incredibly strongly. So I'm really happy about that. The astrantias have put out some flowers already, which I think is too early for them, and the flowers are about an inch and a half tall, so maybe 5 centimeters tall, which is ridiculous and not what they should look like. And they're perennials, so I had them last year, and I know what they're supposed to do anyway. My guess is that they've panicked and they've just decided to go ahead and flower now. Like some other things, like a lot of people's vegetable crops are bolting. My rhubarb is bolting, so things are just deciding to kind of cut their losses and flower and go to seed as quickly as possible. So I suspect that's what the astrantias have done. Other things growing away fine, like the foxgloves, have really enjoyed this week, even though they, get absolutely blasted by the sunshine all afternoon. And the peonies are doing really well, and everything else, bizarrely, seems to be fine. So I know the soil is still damp, and it does get damp overnight as well. So we're just going to have to wait and see, really. God, talk about challenging conditions in the first proper year that you're doing something. I mean, last year was my trial beds year, and it was just wet all year. It was like the wettest winter I think we've ever had, and then the wettest spring, and then the wettest summer, and it was just, yeah, it was just awful. And then this year, like the driest spring we've ever had. Oh, sorry, that's a really noisy car going past. Um, and now we've started off this growing season with a drought. So incredibly unpredictable. And as I say, you just have to store as much water as you possibly can and not let half of it out like a donut like me. So the dahlias went out over the weekend. Executive decision on that one. They'd completely had enough of being indoors, and quite right too. It was far too hot for them. They needed to be outside. So they've all gone outside. Half of them are actually outside, and half of them are in the greenhouse, which is really just a sort of a space issue, really, because ironically for me, I had just got my garden to a nice place where it was all tidy, and I'd really worked hard earlier in the year to make sure that it's tidy, because I know once we get to April, I just won't have any time to spend on it. So I try and get it looking nice by April. Lots of things I got out of their pots, put them in the ground this year, moved things around so that it was as low maintenance as you possibly could have it. And now I've gone and filled it up with loads of dahlias. But it can't be helped, and they've really enjoyed it. Even like in the 3 days that they've been out, they've just greened up enormously. They're much more robust. They just look a lot happier. I have found some leaf gall on one of the plants, on one of the tubers, which is, luckily for me, is in a pot all by itself. So I'm going to have to throw that one in the bin completely. So if you are growing dahlias, people have been looking out for crown gall and leaf gall for some time, ever since they get their dahlias out of storage. And I've been keeping an eye on mine. I got all mine from my mentor this year, and so it's all new to me. So I've been watching them like a hawk, because I know it's a thing and everybody's been posting about it on social media. So far I haven't found anything, but I did spot something when I was moving them out over the weekend, so that one's going to have to be thrown away. So it's no reflection on Richard at all. It's a bacteria that's in the soil, and the tubers can pick it up if the soil is too wet, or they get some kind of damage to them under the surface and the bacteria gets in. And once it's in, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. There is no treatment. And it does spread through the soil or through tools or touching or handling or anything. And so the entire tuber, the entire plant, and the compost that it's in, and probably the pot, come to think of it, needs to be thrown away. Absolutely not composted, but completely, black sack with the household waste kind of job. So that's really sad. And gosh, I'm thinking, God, do I really have to get rid of it? And I've been Googling it all for ages. Like, do I really, really, like, absolutely can't just keep it in a pot quarantined? And the answer is definitely not. It's got to go. So that's a shame. But out of the 60 odd that I've got, that's one. So I reckon I probably got off quite lightly. And we did have an incredibly wet season last year. So it's quite possible that it's just happened, and it's just very unlucky. I've still got my seven cuttings, my seven dahlia cuttings due in the post any day now. I did put on the order form that I'd like them from mid-May onwards, and I'm not in a rush to have them. Um, but they are supposed to be coming, and I know Richard's had his order from Halls of Hedon, but he, I think, requested his to be delivered a little bit earlier than me. So I'm waiting to get them, which I'm excited about. I've been doing lots of prep work. So the digger man is coming tomorrow, actually, tomorrow afternoon. And I'm kind of holding my breath about it. He has confirmed it just like an hour ago, but I'm still like, oh, maybe he won't make it. But I'm just beyond excited. I can't wait. I can't wait. So my other half went out with a strimmer and he strimmed the patch that we're going to be having dug up. Um, so that makes it a lot easier for the dig man. And it's going to make an enormous difference to me, to this plot. It's doubling the growing space, and it's just this gorgeous rectangle. At the moment, it looks like a cricket pitch or something. Not that big, but you know when they cut the lawn really really nicely, and then there's all this long grass around it. So it's going to double the space, and it's just a really lovely, perfect rectangle. So it's 3 fence panels wide by 4 fence panels long, and they're about, I don't know, 2 or 3.5 meters, I think, each fence panel. I can never remember. So it's a really nice, clean, tidy space, whereas the one I'm in is not a rectangle. And if I had my way, I would make everything rectangle just because that would just be more pleasing to the eye. And I didn't put the fence panels up initially. They were done by the guy who used to keep the chickens up here before me, because I would have made a rectangle if it was me. Anyway, the new space is going to be amazing. So I was up here last night, taking the fence panels down and getting rid of some nettles that are in the way, and then collecting some more fence panels, because obviously we're increasing the space by 3 by 4, which meant that I needed 8 more fence panels. And what I tend to do with the fence panels when they're not in use is lean them up against other fence panels, and then they all just get covered in creeping vines and tree foliage and nettles and all sorts. So it was an absolute mission last night. And to stop them falling over or blowing over in the wind, I tie them to another fence panel with little bits of baler twine. And invariably, I've done it in the winter months when there's no foliage around, and you can guarantee now there's nettles everywhere, that the little bit of baler twine that you need to get to is totally covered by a whole load of nettles. So it was quite a fiddly process, and it's like 8:45 that I was doing it last night, and they're big old heavy panels, and some of them are sort of upright and they've got old bits of water in them, and it was a right old messy business. All the ground is uneven. I was lucky I didn't take an eye out doing it. But I had another hosepipe related disaster, which I swapped over one of the hose pipes for another hosepipe, and then went and did something else, moved the new one, and the fitting snapped off in the joint. So where you release the water out of the bowser, the hose fitting, these little plastic things, just snapped off. So I can't run any water out of my third bowser. So luckily the day before I'd filled up one of the water butts that drains off the water bowser. But honestly, I just think, what is my luck with this third water bowser? It's like I'm jinxed this year. So I've drained it already by accident, and now the fitting has snapped off. And until I go and get a replacement fitting, which I have no idea when that's going to happen, I can't run any water out of it. So I just think, oh God, why does it have to be so difficult? Anyway, what else do I have to tell you? Oh yeah, I was listening to a podcast at work the other day, and it was a lady talking about selling her flowers at farmers markets, local markets, town markets, that kind of thing. And I've said to you in the past, I'm really not comfortable doing that because I don't feel confident doing the hand ties, and I need to do some practicing and all the rest of it. Anyway, this lady who's a flower grower, she sells in flower markets over in the States. And what she does is she does single varieties of flowers in bunches. And I just thought, oh my God, why did that not occur to me? Because it genuinely didn't cross my mind that that would even be a thing. So she just puts bunches of stuff together, either mixed, say, for example, all one colour of ranunculus, or a mixed bunch of ranunculus, or all one colour of tulips, or mixed tulips. You get what I'm getting at. But the point is, she does them individually, wraps them up, and if anybody says, "Oh, we want a mixed bouquet," she says, "Oh, well, I do a subscription service. So if you want a bouquet, sign up to my subscription service, or buy a few bunches today and just pop them all together in a vase when you get home." And I thought, well, that might be the answer to my concerns, because I have been worried about it, and I do want to do justice to my flowers. And so, well, I thought maybe this will be an option for me. So I've already looked up selling at my local uh, town market. So it's the first and the third Saturday of every month, and I think actually it's all year round. So I've checked out the pricing and all the arrangements and everything, and I kind of know the lady that runs it. And so I'm thinking, right, okay, well, I either go and ask for a plot all by myself, like a pitch, and I just make it all about me, or I test, not me, my flowers, or I test the water and see if there's anyone I could pair up with and we could share the costs of it and see how it actually works out. I would rather have the whole pitch myself, because then I can brand it up how I want, and the flowers would probably take up quite a bit of space actually, and the pictures aren't even that big. So maybe I should, yeah, I've kind of talked myself out of that one. I should probably just go and do one thing by myself. So I've learned a lot from that podcast, and it was really, really interesting. And I think it might suit me actually, because I like having little chit chats with people, and I would love to be able to tell them, the story behind the flowers, because once I sell to the florist, that they're out of my hands, they're gone, and she's doing these beautiful displays for weddings. Nobody's going to be thinking, oh, I wonder where the flowers have come from. And even if they do, there isn't going to be anyone there to answer the question. Whereas if I'm on a market stall, I'm in the perfect place to say, well, look, this is how they've been grown. No pesticides, no chemicals, no air miles, no travel miles, really. They're going to be going about 2 miles up the road. And they've been grown with love and care and attention and blood, sweat and tears and all the rest of it. And I'm really proud that they're going to go on, and you're going to enjoy them. So I think I'm going to look into that. So the only other little bit of news is that little baby Moland has only got one ear. So Moland is one of Kylie's babies, Kylie being one of my babies from last summer. She's probably not even 1 year old yet. And if you're a regular listener, you'll know she went broody back in February. And I didn't want her having babies then because it's too cold. And it really was. And she didn't know any better. So we managed to hold her off until the end of March. And then she had the babies in April. And Moland was the firstborn. He's a little cockerel. He's very, very beautiful. He's white with kind of little brown splodges on him because his dad's sort of orangey brown and his mum is white. And he had this funny sort of red patch over where one of his ears should go. So chickens have two ears like we do on the sides of their heads, and they have this little tiny, tiny, tiny flap of skin with little miniature feathers on it that covers the ear canal. And Moland had this sort of red patch of skin there, and his left eye was all bloodshot. And I thought perhaps he just had a really difficult getting out of his shell business. And sometimes the hens peck them if they don't really understand exactly what's going on. So I've kept an eye on it, and the red patch cleared up, and I could see where his little ear flap was, and I thought everything was fine. But he had a bloodshot eye last week, and I was just having a closer look at him, and I thought I'll have a look behind this ear flap and just make sure his ear is okay. And there is no ear canal there at all. It's just completely closed over. So he's definitely, with no ear in the left-hand side of him, he's definitely deaf on his left side. And we just don't know what his vision is like, because he's incredibly quick. Like, the babies are so fast that when I try and test his eyesight, he just moves so quickly, and I don't want to upset him too much trying to peer into his left eye But I suppose on the plus side, he doesn't know anything about it. He was born like that and he's never known anything else. So he's not suffering in any way. He will have adapted. His right eye and his right ear will be attuned to everything. But the only thing I suppose it will cause him problems is that chickens need to look at something with both eyes at different times in order to create a 3D image of the world. So we see in 3D anyway, but chickens see two dimensions out of each eye, and they have to. That's why they look like they'll look at things with their left eye, then their right eye, then their left eye, and that helps them to build a 3D picture. So he's not going to be able to do that. So he is going to be experiencing in the world in a different way. But so far, it doesn't seem to be holding him back, and he's always going to be with a group of girls. He won't be able to go in with Roland because Roland will murder him. But he'll have a wonderful life here on the plot, and he'll have a little group of girls. I'll find him some nice girls to be with who will look after him and just make sure that he's okay. He's not going to be much good at spotting predators or anything, so he won't be doing all his warning calls all day like his dad Roland does. But what can you do? He's a very special little boy, and I feel very lucky to have him because his grandpa was a very special boy, and he's no longer with us. Maurice passed away. So there we are. That's all there is to tell you about. I am hoping that when I next speak to you on Friday, I'll have a massive, exciting Digger Man story, and I can put some photos up on the Instagram at Hen Hill Cut Flowers, and you can have a look and see what's happened. And once that is done and the digger is off site, then I can really make some inroads into getting the dahlias out and some other bits and pieces out. Although we're not due any more rain until next week, I think I'll just bring a few trays up, get them in up here, and not hold things back too much because, it's going to hold things back whichever way we look at it. So maybe it's better that they're up here in the ground. But anyway, there's masses and masses of stuff going on this week. And it's just a question of what we can get fitted in around all the regular stuff. And there we are. So that's you all updated with what's going on here up at the plot. So me and all the girls and Roland and Moland and who's the other little boy? Lion. Oh, there he is. And all the girls, we wish you a lovely, lovely evening, and I will be back on Friday. Have a great rest of the week.